This is episode 23 of That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster, where we explore the world of anime and manga. I'm your host, Isekai Sensei Sama, aka Brad, and I'm joined in this week ball by Bento Baggins, aka Ben,
Sashibori,
and Kermit D. Grog.
Ahoy hoy, this is going to be a weird one.
As we dive into the meta of entertainment and culture, don't forget to check out our social media, rate the podcast wherever you can, and tell your friends. You can find links in the description and on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. Come hang out with us on Discord, listen to our Spotify playlist, and get episodes early by supporting us on Patreon. Before we get into our discussion today, I have a somewhat ridiculous list of things to go over for news.
Oh my, I guess we're just about on the fall season and whatever else is going on. So
very close.
Lay it on me.
Half a page.
Yeah, it's pretty long. So to kick it off, just a couple reminders. At the end of the month, we're getting Frieren. And also shortly thereafter, or the same day, I didn't write that down, Firefighter Daigo. So we had talked about those before, but I just want to give a reminder because we're very, very close.
We're close now. They were far away, but now they are close. Such is the matter of time.
So starting on October 1st, we've got quite a list here. So we'll start off with The Family Circumstances of the Unreliable Witch.
Is this a light novel turned manga turned anime?
I don't think it's a
Really?
light novel. It's as far as I can tell, it's a gag manga.
Oh,
I've been reading it for a while. It's pretty ridiculous, but I have a lot of fun with it. I'm interested to watch the anime to see if they get the tone the same, because there's parts of it where I could see them maybe not understanding it's
what the humor is.
Yeah. Like I think it's like as irreverent as like a Bobobo.
That's saying some things.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to check out.
We'll see how it stacks up to Witch Watch, as I'm a recent conversion to Witch Watch.
On the second, we've got a couple here. I'm in love with the villainess. This is a isekai villainous manga. It's become somewhat popular on the Otome Isekai Discord recently because of the upcoming anime.
Shout outs to Heroin Addiction.
Lots of people talking about it there, so I just wanted to give that a shout out. I've been reading it for a while. I think it's really fun. It's interesting because the isekai person is the original heroine, but instead of like following the original story, she was in love with the villainess in her previous world, so she like goes after the villainess.
Oh,
who is tsundere, like hardcore. So it's fun, but also dramatic, and there's a lot to it.
It's
so
the Otome stuff, yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
Sounds neat.
I don't know that I'll watch the anime because I've been reading the manga for the longest time, and I'm whatever in in that respect. But it's a manga I like, so I wanted to shout that one out. Another one on the second, a playthrough of a certain dude's VR MMO life.
I think that's a Rick and Morty bit.
Yeah.
This one has been on my reading list for a long time, but it's one that I only read like 2 or 3 chapters of every once in a while. For whatever reason, I'm not really that interested in it.
And yet you continue to go back.
It's got some interesting things in it.
Okay.
But overall, it's sort of like a lit RPG kind of thing where like they are very heavy in like the actual numbers and stuff. But there's certain things in it that are interesting. And when I saw it on the list of upcoming stuff, I was like, really? They're making an anime of that?
You've talked about every season of just they put on the glove, they do the little, they snap it against the wrist, and then they reach down into the icky bucket of isekais and isekai likes, and they just keep digging down and down and down, and at some point they pull out something unexpected from the bottom, but you know the full contents of the bucket.
I think that's probably one of going to be one of this season's shovelware isekai. So on the third, we've got The Saint's Magic Power is Omnipotent, Season 2.
It sure is.
That's another manga that I read. It's more of a straightforward kind of like isekai and becoming a saintess thing, with the slight twist that like she gets isekai'd with this other girl, and as soon as they get there, they think the other girl is the saint and not this girl, our main character. It's fun, and I'm looking forward to season 2. I did watch the first season of that, and I enjoy it. So
Okay.
something to check out, especially for our Otoma Isekai listeners. On the 4th, The Eminence in the Shadow is back. Everybody remember that?
Brad, I haven't known a single anime we haven't already talked about on this list yet.
If you're an Isekai fan, you know what Eminence in the Shadow is. So, shout out to all my Isekai fans.
Is it connected to what we do in the shadows?
Can I read the next
Tangentially.
one?
Yeah, okay. So another one on the 4th.
Okay. I picked up a young lady who broke off her engagement, and I teach her all kinds of bad things, : I feed her delicious food, let her be fashionable, and to make her the happiest girl in the world. They've taken it too far. It's gone too far now.
That was a roller coaster. I was so worried that from moment one, I was like, oh God, where are we? What's going on? I'm like waiting for the extra terrible.
Not an Isekai.
Not an isekai.
Not an Isekai.
That's insane.
It might be a light novel.
It's a
I'm
light
not
novel.
sure.
It has to, yeah, but Ben, I'm in agreement. That is getting, they make me laugh, but that one's getting out of hand. If that title is being played straight, that's too much.
Maybe with kanji, it actually fits on a book cover, but I don't know how this is going to work to print.
This is actually one of, I think, 2 or 3 that when I was looking them up, they only had the Japanese name listed. So I recognized it from like the description and the picture. But I was like, wait a minute, which one is this? So I looked them, and I'm like, why? I don't understand why they're just going by the Japanese name here. But this is a really, it's very, it's sort of slow, like slice of life kind of thing. Very wholesome.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
When it says teach her all kinds of bad things, so she was like abused in her household and then got kicked out.
So this is a parent child or mentor mentee, a senpai and a kohai, if you will allow me to be a weeb for a moment.
I would agree with you, except then, as I explain stuff, you would be like, "Oh, that's gross," because
I already got that vibe. But that was when specifically the phrase "young girl" and then broke off annulment, and then it's like I teach her bad things, and I'm like, "Oh nope, we're on red alert. We're on red alert."
But like the bad things that he's teaching her is like, we're gonna have some ice cream in the middle of the night, and we're gonna stay up late, and
oh, cutesy
stuff that's like that you would tell a child.
I'm still in
is
fear.
Bad, but like
I'm still in fear if there's a romantic.
It's very cute.
Wait, is he her father or her lover?
No, he just like picked her up in the woods.
Brad, you have to.
That didn't answer the question.
No, bro. Hey guys, this is foreshadowing. This is foreplay to the topic of today's episode.
There is absolutely no lewdness in this at all.
Then
That's for
why
the
isn't
best.
it a parent-child relationship, Brad?
What do you mean? Why does it have to be parent-child?
Because
the
teaching her like she's a
alternative
child.
makes my stomach feel icky.
Why can't she have not experienced the world and he helps her to experience the world?
Yes, that is the things that I said. A parent-child, a mentor-mentee, a senpai and kohai.
Why does that have to be... What?
Whatever. Let's move on.
Why can't you be in a romantic relationship and do that stuff?
Also, when you said young lady is also a key. Brad, let's move on. I don't want to talk about this anymore.
We'll be here all day. This is an episode by itself.
Okay, well, on to something much less controversial. On the 4th, Uma Musume Pretty Derby.
Oh, the horse anime is back. The horse anime that when I was at near my peak horsedom, I watched one episode and went, I'm good.
I put this on here because there are people on the Otome Isekai Discord talking about it, and I was like, what the heck
What
is
if
this?
cute girls were horses?
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Musume. Oh, okay. I was like, that. What does that have to? Musume means like daughter, or like young girl.
There comes that young girl again.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, literally, I think it means daughter. Musume and Musko.
But I honestly, I didn't even look into it.
Pretty derby.
I just heard the name and I was like, okay.
Whatever.
On the 5th, The Ancient Magus Bride is back, season 3, which I didn't even know was happening. I haven't watched season 2 yet, but I really enjoyed the first season of that. So I guess I'm looking forward to season 3. And on the 6th, Rising of the Shield Hero season 3.
Patooey.
Which will be interesting to hear people's opinions of because pretty much everybody hated season 2.
I was cool ahead of time. I hated episode 1.
Something you
I'm
might...
sure people like it. I'll get off my horse.
And on to Uma Masumi.
Sure.
Something that you have probably heard of. On the 6th, Undead Unluck.
Oh, that hadn't come out yet. I guess it was just the teaser trailer.
Yeah.
I would check that out. I read some of the manga, and everybody's been saying that the manga, like, it's one of the few Jump series that, like, kind of was lost for a while and then just did something else and found its footing, and now it's doing real well. So
I
would give it a gander.
I heard some mixed things on the Shonen Flop Discord about it, but I thought it had an interesting premise overall. So
the people who I generally trust seem to speak well of it. So I think when I'm itching for another shonen-y series, I'll dip my toe back into that.
Also on the 6th...
Oh, there you go.
She's reading the manga. How long has she been reading it
She can't
for?
watch the anime. It's not out yet.
I don't know. I think
you can watch the trailers and say I like it.
I mean, true.
She was telling me that she likes the relationship between the guy and the girl. So
from what I read.
That was something that someone was saying they were uncomfortable with.
Yep, there's definitely bits in the beginning that are. It's a topic that would come up in today's episode if I had read more and had more of an understanding of where it was and where it went.
Also on the 6th, Goblin Slayer is back, season 2.
Goblins!
I hate goblins.
Goblins.
Which is the abridged version, but that's still great. The actual anime is pretty good. The abridged version is also really good. So
all I know about it is one of my favorite bands does the opening.
Yep.
Yep.
On the 7th, Faraway Paladin is back.
I forgot. I didn't know it would come back.
We didn't watch all of season 1.
Nope.
It wasn't good enough.
Oh, Brad, this list is truly epically long. Oh my gosh, I'm still waiting for something on it.
We're getting to the end, and you'll definitely want to stick around to the end.
I know what's there. I'm just waiting for it. 'Cause I got other news related to it.
On the 7th, again, I Shall Survive Using Potions. So that's an isekai I actually haven't read.
Wow.
Yeah. It is on my to-read list. I'd heard some good things about it. Put it on the list, but I haven't read it yet.
It's an isekai born from that fact that everybody that plays RPG hoards all their items, and in this one they exclusively use their items to just succeed at everything.
I thought it was just about diabetes. It's insulin. He survives using potions. It's my retirement plan, actually.
To get diabetes?
No, to survive using potions.
Oh.
Also the 7th, Tear Moon Empire. It's a what do we call them? A
anime.
What would you call it when someone dies and then goes back in time?
Regression.
That's the word.
Oh, I didn't know there
it's
was a
a
word
regression isekai.
Okay.
So there's a princess.
I've been doing heroin addiction long enough. I know these.
You've spent enough time around the scholar.
But yeah, so there's the princess. She goes through her life. She's she's pretty selfish. I wouldn't say evil, but she's an airhead, and she gets executed because her country goes to shit. She regresses.
She gets another shot at it.
And then it's a comedy because she's trying to avoid being executed. And in doing so, everybody around her starts to think that she's a genius, even though she's literally just like doing whatever comes to her mind to try and avoid being
And
executed.
it always happens to be.
I like the manga. I have a lot of fun
Caiaphas
with
Cain
it,
of
so.
you.
All right, one more thing.
Here's
it's
the big
on the
one.
7th.
Unless it's not the big one.
Go ahead.
It's Spy Family,
It is.
season 2.
It is Spy Family.
Also, Spy Family news literally announced just yesterday in a Nintendo Direct. Spy Family is getting a Switch game based around Anya, and it looks adorable.
Adorable is a word you could use, yeah.
Oh,
You're not. I don't know anything about it.
No, honestly, I watched the trailer. I was like, why?
it looks
Why?
adorable. It gives me like cute little cozy like Animal Crossing,
Yeah, and
similar things.
I'm sure it's
vibe.
fine. It just it's
Not your kind of game.
it struck me as strange that it was like, here's the Spy Family game, but it's this very specific
Well, you have
thing.
to think about it. That thing has been in production probably pre the anime because games take a while to make.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know.
Or in
last-
in conjunction with the first season.
I mean, Chainsaw Man doesn't have a game yet, does it? That's not a phone game. Like new manga getting animes or getting video games is kind of a big deal. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like Spy Family's not that old.
I'm excited in so much as it's an IP that I like and I hope it succeeds. I don't think I'm going to play the game. I don't think I care.
We're gonna play it on the channel, guys.
Have you ever liked an anime video game?
You
That
drive
one-
a hard bargain.
That One Piece.
I feel like it. Pirate Warriors 4 was fun, but
Yeah.
it's not like I don't know if there's an anime game that I would call great.
I think I liked the dot hack sign games. That was it.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are like anime games usually like maybe that's an episode. We'll do one on anime
Yeah.
games at some point and go like, wow, mid but fun. Allow me to recite all the English audiobarks for One Piece Grand Adventure.
Well, that's the whole list. So
Woo.
that's I just saw a lot that I recognize.
I mean, it's the
wanna
new
get 'em out
season,
there,
and
yeah.
you recognize a lot because they keep reaching into the bucket.
I think there's really only 2 on there that I would call shovelware. So I think it'll be a good season for people who actually watch anime. Which is apparently not us.
We watched some of it. We already have planned what we're watching.
I mean, we're gonna watch Spy Family.
Watch some Spy Family. And Frieren, we will watch Frieren.
That's gonna take its own night.
That's its own night.
It's 2 hours long. Like,
It's its own night. So everybody, today is a very special, cursed, maybe more heavily edited episode that we've ever done. In honor of us hitting episode 23, which is 1/3 of 69. Nice.
well, there's 3 of us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so perfect. There are 3 of us. We're doing a hopefully not too cursed.
Oh wait, no, it's all screwed up. Ben wasn't on the last episode. This is his 22nd episode.
Oh, we're not doing fractions, my dude. No. None of this. We are back. You can't avoid this. We are doing what I've been calling ages the cursed horny episode, or probably put more academically, like investigating and diving into sexuality and similar things in manga and anime, because it shows up a lot, and there's a lot that we're kind of like, really wish this wasn't here.
Yeah. So, big content warning for this. This is probably the first one that will actually be marked as explicit. I'm not going to be editing out swear words or stuff like that.
Don't know where the boat's going, so...
And I would say, if you know us in real life, you might not want to listen to this.
Oh gosh, I don't know if anybody I know listens to this. Yeah, fair warning. I've got some probably trauma related to this stuff. Nothing like, explicit or violent or anything, but like, I guess that's how we're starting with this. Each of us is coming from a different place talking about this. So I guess I wanted to set that ground rule before we properly put the boat in.
So if you have any kind of feelings about that kind of stuff, you can skip to the next segment where we will also be talking about some horny related stuff, but not as heavy.
Yeah, we will. even though this is going to be explicit, at least my intention is to not try to make anybody uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to delve into uncomfortable things, and that's just part of the process. But hopefully nothing too literally explicitly described. I don't think that's our intention. But again, don't know where the boat's going.
I was thinking about vividly describing The Fisherman's Wife, the first instance of hentai.
Is that where the tentacle stuff comes from?
Yeah. No, since the early 17th century, Japanese have been drawing anime girls getting it on with squids.
Oh.
Have you ever seen that the drawing of like the octopus or whatever, and the woman, and it's like it's real old.
Is that not the thing that Ben is describing?
That's
right
The Fisherman's Wife. Yeah.
That's the Fisherman's Wife.
I thought you were describing an actual like series of things. Isn't that just a single picture?
Yeah, The Fisherman's Wife is the painting of the lady in the squid.
Yeah.
Or
Look
maybe
that
it's
up
an octopus. I'm not
on your own time. I think it was an octopus. I think. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter. Suffice it to say, we consume a lot of anime and manga, and we are generally uncomfortable at moments when sexuality is put in there, and it's present. And admittedly, we watch a lot of, or at least I know I read a lot of like shonen stuff, which is admittedly supposed to be for teen boys. So that stuff. I guess where do we want to start? Do we want to pick a particular example and start going from there?
So I was thinking to just sort of level set where I'm at with this. I want to tell you guys, there is something that I like.
Oh gosh.
I like porn. Okay?
What a surprise.
I enjoy looking at pornography from time to time by myself.
How brave yet and flippant.
Yeah, I think a lot of us of you know.
However, there is one thing that I don't like, which is porn in normal stuff. And there's a huge problem, especially in sort of Japanese media, anime, manga, but sort of just pervasive in media in general, where there's stuff that it just skirts the line of pornography in normal everyday stuff. And I don't get it. As a adult male, when I want to be titillated, I go and I seek that out. I find that as a thing that is on its own. So I guess besides the fact that there's a lot of anime and manga that's targeted towards teenage boys, I sort of don't understand why it's so pervasive.
I thought I had something and I didn't.
I mean, sex sells. Why is it so pervasive in pop music? Why is it so pervasive in movies? Like, sex sells.
I mean, maybe we're just
people want to see naked people.
Puritan Americans about it. That some of our stuff, but like there are times. I mean, I guess there's other things. I'm sure it shows up in American comics, but I don't read those. But there's like a lot of times where it's like
an American superhero comic.
Yes, I have. Yes, I'm aware of those. I don't know how prevalent it is within the stories where it's like, oh, this woman was undressed in public, and you get to see her panties, and it's supposed to be like a haha funny titillating moment. I'm like, this is really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I don't like this, and I feel like that has been. There are times when they're better about that, where it's like, I hate it when it's at the expense of somebody. Again, usually women. And that's just like, this isn't titillating. This makes me uncomfortable that it has to be at somebody else's expense to be.
Yeah.
And it's like usually played off for laughs. And I think that one's definitely an older thing. And like Dragon Ball very specifically comes to mind with that. Maybe just because I went back to that recently. So it's kind of in there in sharper image. But
I think that's a good point because, you know, when it's sort of a point in the story, like there's characters that are having a romantic relationship and there's something within that context that's titillating, that it's you know, it's basically part of the story. It's like, okay, you know, like I gloss over that a lot. But when it's very specifically just for the reader or the watcher, and it's like, this doesn't make sense in the context that we're in. Like, why, like you said, where it's like humiliation or whatever, normally for a woman. It's like, why are we doing this? Like, this isn't serving any purpose.
I don't know. I don't know if I can explain like human sexuality. Like I feel like it's in a lot of other stuff. It's not just anime where it doesn't really need to be there. I mean, I would say my other, I don't know what this says about me, but like my other big passion, horror movies, is it's all about killing teenagers having sex.
Women get disrespected very literally explicitly.
But the one thing I wanted to mention kind of is like anime horniness, like anime is famous for horniness, but at the same time, Japan has like one of the most rigid moral codes, like legally enforced when it comes to pornography and sex.
Right.
If you basically, it is illegal to make pornography in Japan, and everybody who makes pornography in Japan has contraband on their computer or
He's
camera.
Technically a criminal. Very, very,
until
very
they mosaic it. Yeah. Like, so you can go to jail. Like, a lady went to jail for making a 3D. She sent out 3D printing plans for like some kind of canoe that was shaped like her vagina. And they charged her with obscenity for that.
I know we're all in agreement that that's ridiculous, but just I think it's extra ridiculous that they somehow have all agreed that as soon as you pixelate the genitalia,
I don't think it is an everybody thing. I think it's just been around, and this is what the archaic legal system in Japan.
Well, and it's carefully negotiated. Like there are like whole PhD theses written on this phenomenon of like porn was illegal, and then people started pushing it a little further to see if the cops would arrest them, and they started pushing it a little further, and so the mosaic, I think, is still technically illegal.
Oh,
it's
really?
just not enforced.
Interesting. Okay, so
then why enforce it at all?
For the journalism
and why not fix the laws? Why can't everybody in the government be like, hey, we're all adults and we understand what's going on. Let's fix this.
Brad, they just sent a man, I say they, the Japanese court system intended to send a man to jail for 2 years for posting a Let's Play of a visual novel on YouTube. Like,
well, yeah, but that's Nintendo's intellectual property. That's a real crime.
The Japanese
Brad, the listeners can't see you winking.
The Japanese government is a lot more conservative than your average mangaka. And so I think there's this delicate balance of like, a lot of people have made the weird, and you can't, this amounts to like diagnosing strangers, which you should never do. But there is a certain amount of like, it's suppressed. Like sexuality in Japan is suppressed a lot. They enforce uniforms. Everybody should look exactly the same. The more different you look, the worse it is. And like, as you know, like from like weird Victorian times, that breeds weird fetishes and stuff. You start getting the like show ankle meme. All
Maybe
that
that's
stuff.
what it is. It's like one of those like Play-Doh pattern makers where if there was no restraint on it, would just come out normal shaped. But because it has to be held inside so much, it comes out in all these weird shapes and places in different forms. And that was just how that was cooked. And it's extra, I guess, explicit or frustrating to us because it's not, America has its own things with sexuality, but it's different than ours enough and formalized enough into a shape that it is extra, like, provocative to us, or frustrating or something.
So, if we go along the axis of, Japan is bad about this because they have all these restrictive laws, and so you get a lot of stuff in normal media that is more titillating, right?
It can't exist in its true end state, as you've described, of pornography, so it has to exist in little more legal ways elsewhere.
I would be more willing to sort of accept that and go along with down that route if it weren't for the fact that like they also have the internet. They can also get their hands on actual pornography. So like,
well, that's half of it, I would say. The other half is in Japan, and it has changed a lot. Like we've seen it in the time we've been watching anime.
Yeah.
I think they don't. America is more sexually repressed than a lot of Europe too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be as common or as uncommon to see nudity in like a French film back in the day as it would.
I mean, I think they literally put naked tits in British magazines back in the day. I'm sure I could state that in a more informed way, but I remember that being... It's got some name. I don't remember. I think, is that what page 3 is or something?
I'm not sure.
I don't think it's... Maybe it is 3, but I know what you're talking about. That one tabloid. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so there is an extent where like Japan doesn't have our puritanical sex is shame Christian...
They've got something else.
background. Oh, they've got something else. But... that leads to a lot more boys will be boys type of jokes.
Yes.
Of like the locker room peeking. And like that stuff used to be prevalent in American media too. I don't want to blame the Japan. Like the Porky's was a famous movie, but like those were still sort of transgressive. Whereas like, I think in Japan for a long time, I think the kind of like blue potty humor is a little more loved and cherished there than it is here.
Hey, Zom 100, one of the main characters, he wants to be a comedian, and his main bit is that he gets naked.
He gets naked, and that's the joke.
Yeah, and I was going to say that could be a little bit of my bias because that sort of humor also translates better because we all get the joke than like some nuanced wordplay, which is difficult to just subtitle and make you laugh.
It has to become localized to capture the spirit of it, but somebody just stripping down is like, oh my gosh, what's he doing?
But I definitely think Japan had this really masculine culture where I don't think it would be too controversial to say that women are oppressed in a lot of ways in Japan that the West has made maybe some more progress on. I'm sure there are ways that the West hasn't made more progress on.
Yeah.
But like sexual harassment culture, I think was worse, or at least it wasn't talked about as much. It was more like private. You keep that to yourself. You deal with it. Mm-hmm. And so you get the Roshi. Of course an old man wants to look at a young girl naked. That's what old men do. There's just that boys will be boys, boys will be boys. And I think that's a lot of what gets into the shonen manga is.
So I think I'm more forgiving of stuff that came out 15, 30 years
20,
and older.
30, 40 years
because
ago. Like Dragon Ball is one where I will cringe at it and I will go, it's of its time. I don't like it, but I can, admittedly, part of that is nostalgia enabling me to know that there's something else in there.
But specifically to of its time is the whole thing about like being able to easily access actual pornography. Because, 30 years ago, you didn't have the internet that you could just jump on and look at literally anything at any time. You had to like go to a store and be shamed by buying a Playboy or whatever. But like, why? I mean, and maybe it's just a vestige of that time. But it's like when we have access to naked tits whenever we want them, why do we still want that in our everyday media?
Well, here, let me kind of attempt a counterpoint of that. I'm still generally against of it becoming like explicit, but I think there is something, as Ben said before, of like sex sells. Like, I'm gonna have to admit this again when, hey, foreshadowing, I'm gonna be on Shonen Flop in a couple of weeks talking about Fabricant 100. Spoiler alert, I don't actually know if I'm allowed to talk about it yet. I should probably ask them that before we put this in here. But Fabricant 100, one of the main characters is a very large woman in a nice sundress and hat with large boobers that kind of looks like Lady Dimitrescu from Resident Evil 8. And would I have gotten to it at some point as somebody reading a bunch of new shonen series, a year or whatever ago when that series started? I probably would have gotten to it. I'd be lying if I said, my reading it did not get sped up by the fact that there was a post on the Super Best Friends Reddit where it's like, hi, there's a large boobed tall woman that's in this new manga. And I'm like, well, I have to look at that now. And I'm not expecting like hardcore sex because I don't want that. That's not what I want. And that's not going to happen in Shonen Jump. But like, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't a motivating factor to me to go look at it. And having read all of Fabricant 100, I don't think they ever like sexualize her very directly. There's never just a panel just staring at her boobs or something, or nobody ever makes a comment. They're just,
I feel like
she's
that's
just
different.
a large, beautiful woman. And I'm going to parlay this into, we've talked about this before, but going back long ago when we talked about Tricks Dedicated to Witches, which is a weirdly horny manga that never feels, well, except for those one or two times that we've talked about, and they're very strange. Outside of those, a surprisingly horny manga that never feels icky, at least to our sensibilities.
Right. Well,
Ben, did you ever actually read Tricks Dedicated to Witches? I don't remember.
I did not.
Okay.
It didn't feel icky until someone pointed it out. I was like,
that was
wait a minute, what?
Like, that wasn't in general. That was a really particular spot.
Well, so, Brad, have you ever heard the 4 Fs of biology? Like the 4 Fs of the sympathetic nervous system?
Yeah. What is it? Food,
Fear, fight, flight, and sex.
Fuck. We said this one was going to be explicit.
No, that's the joke.
Oh.
That's the joke, is it's the 4 Fs and the last one, sex.
Fornication.
Yeah. So I guess to flip turn the question around on you is, why do you draw a barrier between this part of life and all the other parts of life?
Well, the very specific instances where I get annoyed by it, because I have to say, for the most part, or maybe, I guess completely, I've never encountered a situation where there's something like that in something I'm reading or watching and been like, I'm done with this. I can't. No, I just go, really? Did you have to do that? And just continue with it. It's an annoyance. It's more of like I don't understand why you had to do that, because when it annoys me, it's always a thing where it's taking me out of the moment. It's out of place.
Don't out of the moment me with your shovelware isekai.
I mean,
I'm
sure.
saying this from a position that I mostly agree with you, admittedly, but
like, even when I sign up to watch or read trash, when there's out of the blue pornography in it, I'm like, what are you doing? Why?
Are you describing that as like anything cheesecakey? Like, here's a panel looking at somebody's boobs or
no,
something?
See, I mean, as much as I don't really care about it, the occasional fan service is like, that's sort of my line of like, okay, cater to the horny teenagers or whatever. Is, okay, you've got a shot, full body shot of this female character, and she's wearing a tight dress or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's when it goes further than that. Like you were talking about, when they fall over and their dress flips up and they're in the public square and everybody
and it's played for both titillation and laughs, and it's just like, I don't want to see this. Like, this isn't to foreshadow a future episode of when I was reading Akira, and there's the moment when they're bringing in a bunch of girls essentially as like concubines and sex slaves or whatever for what's his name? Is it Tetsuo? And it's just like, here's a small child, here's her boobs, drawn like an adult woman's boobs for multiple panels, and it's like, I'm outside in a public area at the pool reading this. Did you need to do this? Why are they so lovingly drawn? And it's just like, could you not? Like, this is a really serious, like, dour story. It just felt very, like, that felt comfortable because it felt very out of place and nobody's happy, but it's not drawn to be like, oh, this vulnerableness of this naked form. It's like, no, these are just drawn like adult woman boobs on a teenager who's not doing well. And it's just just like a bunch of wires are getting crossed, and this doesn't fit here. This doesn't feel like it makes sense. And maybe that's the thing with Tricks Dedicated Witches. Tricks Dedicated Witches also has, even if it's not always present, and maybe, again, this is the speaking from my position of, like, coming from queer spaces, and if I can tell you something about queer people, they are sometimes puritanical about things. They're also really horny all the time. And that's the energy I get when I read Tricks Dedicated to Witches, except for the spots that we talked about, like one or two spots that are like, what are you doing? Is it just feels like everybody's consenting, everybody's having a good time, the human form is a cool thing, let's just be beautiful and pretty and hot and stuff. And it doesn't feel like anybody's at anybody's expense. Nobody feels like it. Nothing feels like violating. It's just we're being sexy.
Yeah, and there's a part of me that does actually understand all of this, and I'm just venting to some extent.
Yeah.
And I think I understand the main disconnect that I have with it, which is like I am not, constantly horny. Like I'm married. Like I am an adult male. I can look at pornography when I want. Like I am not repressed in any way. So like when I have that in my media, it's more like you are pausing the thing that I was enjoying to do something that is not for me,
Well, let me ask you a question. If you're reading a romance and the characters hook up, that is a logical progression of the story.
Yeah, I signed up for that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they were to show nudity in that, you wouldn't consider that to be one of these things that's too intrusive and weird.
Because it is not out of
Most
place.
of the time, yeah.
For the most part, unless there's like something.
If
There's
they were to have like a full hardcore sex scene.
Oh yeah,
like,
I mean
'cause-
also, yeah.
Because this is where I'm trying to draw the line between like what is erotic and sexy, and then when does it become pornography? And nobody can draw it like that is an undefinable thing. But for me, I'm wondering like, is it partly like the shonen stuff? Like when you're reading an isekai and it has, and I don't mean this as like an insult or pejoratively, but like when it has like a juvenile plot of it's like a 14-year-old kid and he just wants people to like him or something, and then all of a sudden it starts going into like weird sex stuff. It's like, okay, well that's weird because I don't think 14-year-olds should be doing that. And even if they lie and age it up, if they still draw them like 14-year-olds,
Right.
Yeah. Do we want to wade into the age land? 'Cause I
mean,
feel like that's a really
so-
important part of this discussion.
Yeah, that's,
Well,
I mean...
when
that-
is it wrong is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. So there's definitely a line where, for me, it's going from, hey, I'm annoyed by this, but I get what you're doing because of that sex sells thing, like you said. And you can cross that line into, no, this is actually wrong, and this could potentially be bad for society. Like in general, like the fact that this is like a popular media thing could be a problem.
This is a consistent thing that shows up a lot.
Yeah.
That was something I wanted to talk about with all this as we get ready to wade into the age pool. Adult Swim
Yeah, 'cause I
comes out of
mean-
the pool.
One of the biggest criticisms of sex and anime from people who don't watch anime is it normalizes sexual assault.
Exactly.
A kid
Like,
a kid growing up watching that thinks it is funny
Right.
to look up a girl's skirt, when in actuality that's a crime.
yeah. It's this I was trying to express this idea to Brad earlier, and I'm going to have an example of a not sexual based thing where this is a thing where it's like, if these were one-offs, if these were a thing that didn't happen in anything else, you'd go, that's kind of whatever, but it only happened once and they set up in this particular series, so sure, fine, whatever. But it's like when you keep seeing it pop up in different places over and over throughout time of this medium, you go, okay, this is it becomes problematic at that point. But if you're looking at it just zoomed in on one particular case, that one can be not as bad, but taken in the context. Let's freaking the grayest gray, not the gray area, I guess the gray area for me of like, hi, shonen stuff usually deals with teenagers. It's also written for teenagers. Usually women are drawn cute. These women are also legally underage, but also sometimes drawn like adults or don't act like children. But also you have to think that usually there's a 30, 40 plus mangaka drawing these things, and everything becomes very wazy and hazy and kind of like, don't think about it too hard. But there's there is sometimes, for me personally, I'm speaking from my position, a gray area when it comes to, like, let's say My Hero Academia, where it's like, here are a bunch of women characters. We've drawn them sexy. And I go, I know these people are under 18, but also they're drawn and usually act like adults, and also they're cartoon characters. But also that defense doesn't always work. for other examples I'm going to bring up later. So it just becomes a very like shrugging aggressively gray area. I don't know. I'm not going to go out of my way with my pitchforks about anybody doing anything about this.
Do you think it's different in America?
What?
The sexualization of underage people.
Oh,
I think it happens.
I think it's not as much. It's definitely been around, but I think because usually,
I think that there's a big difference in that. At least this is what I am viewing. Like the way that I see it is that a lot of media in the West that is geared towards children is the actors that are in it are adults that are pretending to be high schoolers or whatever. And so, you have a lot of that sexualization, but like you're looking at someone who is clearly an adult saying that they're 16 or 17 versus a lot of this media where like a lot of times the adults in anime or manga look like they're teenagers.
I would push back just a little bit because like, I mean, I'm sure if you haven't already heard about the weird thing that's going on with like That 70s Show cast.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
But I'm not getting into that specifically. But because of that, I was watching a video essay on something, and they mentioned that on That 70s Show, that a show that was aired in prime time on America for 8 years straight.
I remember. I watched it.
Jackie, the actress Mila Kunis, was 14.
Yeah.
And they had her kissing a 19-year-old. And
she did lie about her age.
And they went on, but okay, they thought she was 16.
It's still.
I mean, yeah. So then they went on to have her kiss every guy on the show.
I can say it was the 90s or the early 2000s, but it doesn't make it that much better.
So then my second thing is, well, in America, if you're watching like, and I'm just old, so you'll have to forgive my examples, but like 90210 or Dawson's Creek or Buffy the Vampire Slayer or any of that. I guess the CW stuff now is probably the closest equivalent.
The fitting line for that.
So if you're watching like Riverdale or something, and they're obviously obviously adults playing teenagers, I would fire back, and these are obviously cartoons. Like they're not.
I mean, that is an important.
The one's
point.
pink and has antennas, but like, and I'm not trying to defend it because I also think it's weird and gross. I'm just like, I'm trying to gauge where we're at in like, this is an anime podcast, so we got to talk about it from the anime perspective.
No, but I think it's good that you pointed out that this is not just Japan. We also, America has this, but there's also similar things, different things. It's just that we're looking at it through such a specific
And lens. I think a big challenge for Americans, and like, don't get me wrong, the sex stuff is like one of the reasons I talk about being so reluctant to ever mention I watch anime.
Yeah.
But I think there's partly like maybe a little cultural difference where we see a cartoon and we imagine the audience is young.
None of this stuff is in American, like Western cartoons. Like they're not.
We're getting there. I mean, we had the HBO stuff before they got bought by.
I can't say that's.
But like, it's not like it's not. It doesn't. It's a rarity when it shows up more than just like, oh, this will exist.
I think for me, it's there are very few times when I encounter something like that and I'm annoyed by it that I'm going, there's children reading this. No, it's just annoying to me. Like,
but it's not like those things. Children's animated media, there's not a lick of this in there as much anymore. I think there's still been, to your point, there were some everything. I can think of, admittedly, that one. I'd say, there you go. I'd say it's played for jokes. It's like the old SpongeBob episode where they go on a panty raid, which when I was a kid, I didn't understand what that meant. And that's still, when I think about that, it's still like, how did that one get made? Like, it's so, it tells you exactly what it's doing. And it's played for a gag that the characters doing it are like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is not cool. This is stupid.
Well, and we've, in America, recently had to joke about every Disney princess is canonically like 14.
Yeah.
Right.
And why is Ariel running around in a seashell bikini when she's a fish?
But then we get into our anime
Wait,
side
what's
with
the
the gray area
alternative?
where it's just like this is an animated character drawn more like an adult, played by an adult. Like there's nothing, the things in your body that tell you this is a young person.
What's the alternative? She could wear a burkini. She could cover.
Because
I don't even want to see wrist.
I think the implication when you say she's a fish is that she wouldn't be wearing anything.
Brad.
The implication when I say she's a fish is she doesn't need to be sexualized.
Yeah.
I will say of this
she's gotta be
described gray area is that there is that other end of the extreme that I think we've discussed before where it's like, oh, it's a 300-year-old dragon that looks like an 8-year-old. So it's okay to sexualize her because she's 300 years old, but she looks 8.
You know,
And that one I'm like, nope.
I would be slightly more forgiving of that trope if it weren't for the fact that the 300-year-old dragon still acted like an 8-year-old
sounds
girl.
like an 8-year-old, looks like an 8-year-old, and acts like an 8-year-old, which means no.
Yeah.
Unlike, again, our Waverly gray area where I kind of shift back and forth all the time, where it's like I go back to My Hero a lot, I guess, but I could point at like a Demon Slayer or something where it's like, here are these animated characters who look generally of age, who are voiced by adults, and that's, again, aggressive shrugging and uncomfortable wringing of hands and going gray area. I don't know. If you're not cool with it, I'd accept that. If you're cool with it, fine, I guess. But
The 1,000-year-old dragon thing is one where I think I will give up my devil's advocacy and say I think Japan has a worse problem than we do.
yes, they love you maybe a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll get into I think I've actually talked on the podcast because I hated it so much. Of a particular example, I guess akin to that and some other things, of when I was reading In Another World Where Baseball is War, which is an isekai where a baseball player who is someone injured gets isekai'd to a D&D-esque fantasy world where all conflicts because of the decree of the god is settled by baseball. So he has like the ragtag group that he's trying to get together to like win back all their territory and all the people that got stolen as slaves. And like the first, dozen chapters, whatever, like it's kind of horny. It's drawing butts. It's looking at a lot of butts. Some of them are on characters that are maybe a little too young looking to be leering at them in the way that the frames do. But I'm like, okay, sure, I'm looking at butts. This is nice. Japan doesn't really know about butts, and they're slowly figuring it out. Shout out to Jujutsu Kaisen. I'll get to you in a second. And then just all of a sudden, they're like, we're going to do a training dungeon to get stronger, to train up for the next game. If you don't get through it in time, you will get attacked by the tentacles. And there's just a page of a bunch of the female characters, some of them way too young looking, being violated by tentacles that the translator, the fan translation I had, censored it out on the website. And I was like, what is...
It was very out of...
It was very out of place.
Out of left field.
Out of left... baseball. And, I mean, that's admittedly, like, the worst example of it, but there was a lot where it felt like the artist is getting by on drawing titillating things even though the story isn't about it at all. And that's one where it's just like, this feels exploitative and icky, even if outside of that rape dungeon, none of the characters are, like, leering at one another, but, like, there's the thing, it's like the manga panel or the anime camera can leer at somebody. Like, it can be like, oh, this person is drawn like this, but sometimes the panel can be drawn in a way that it's like, oh, this is drawn very specifically.
Yeah.
And it's like, no character is sexualizing somebody, but the author sure is.
Well, and that was the Tricks Dedicated to Witches thing, is the main character is not sexual at all. He might be ace.
But like that happens sometimes when you say that, and I look at it and it just feels like it's an excuse for us to do the titillation. But I never felt that with Tricks Dedicated to Witches. It genuinely felt above board, and that's what kind of made it great.
When I reread it, I definitely caught a lot of the author is doing the fan service, being horny, even though the characters may not be. The first witch, and I am a complete failure. I've forgotten all of their names,
Yeah,
but
same.
she's got gigantic boobs and they frame them up all the time. But the protagonist doesn't care. He's not into that. He loves magic.
But I guess what causes it to not feel like it's leering at in the manga panel. Like, that's what I wanted. I don't know how to capture that concept of what Trix dedicated, which is maybe it's just because it never felt that it was going to do something like that to them. I always felt like safe reading it. It's like, oh, we're all in a safe queer space here. It's nice to look at the human form sometimes.
It might just be because it does so many other things properly that you sort of don't notice it when it's doing the horniness.
It's not. It doesn't feel as icky.
But like the second girl, the blacksmith girl,
builder one, yeah.
She's just wearing overalls all the time.
Yeah.
She's practically naked all the time. Like, it's definitely... It definitely sexualizes
like,
those
pretty,
girls.
But they're never drawn like porny. Is that maybe that like? And again, that's a line that is different in everybody's brain.
I suppose, yeah.
And maybe just for our particular brains, it never crossed that line for the most part.
Yeah. So even though they're, they might be scantily clad at times, sometimes they frame up the boobs or whatever, because the situations that they're in aren't sexual.
Maybe it also helps that the manga respects all these women and they're not just like harem things where it's like, I'm this trope. It's like, no, they seem to have their own wants and dislikes and goals that they're trying to aim for, and like they feel like realized characters and not just vessels to be gawked at.
We've really missed out though, because the next witch that they were gonna bring in was like the prostitute.
I don't know. We might be having a different conversation. I don't know.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
It could have been handled well.
It's so. I mean, I'm disappointed that it stopped anyway. But like specifically for this episode, it's so disappointing that it stopped, because there's specifically a character that is all about sexualization that was coming.
But maybe that's what makes that one feel better, is that it feels like everybody's being respected, and maybe that's just
probably
me, where I come from.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to say my point of like, Jujutsu Kaisen is one where I've read that the author is specifically like, I'm never going to draw any of my females in a cheesecakey way. Shonen Jump, never include them in any of your cheesecake stuff. And I'm not of the mind that like, this should be true for all of the Shonen Jump series, but there's something very nice and refreshing about that I really respect and appreciate, and Jujutsu Kaisen has a lot of really cool female characters in it that I appreciate outside of that. And like, some of them are attractive, but none of them are like cheesecakey. Necessarily. They're never drawn like that because that's what the author wants, and I can respect that. And it's like, hey, that's neat, Like if you make cool female characters, to me they will be attractive. You don't need to just draw them as cheesecakey things that it just exists for that.
Right.
Like, I don't know. That I found refreshing. Would I want that on everything? No, that's like the opposite of the like, hey, in its own, it wouldn't be a problem, but everywhere it's a problem. I guess that's what this is. It's a nice change of pace to have somebody in Jump making a series which is like the biggest thing in the magazine right now outside of One Piece. So it's exciting to see like change in big popular places where it's just like, that's just not a thing in this manga, but it's still like, here's a bunch of beautiful people. Like,
well, and that's
JoJo's a pretty boy, you want to look at him.
When it comes down to it, me ranting about how these things are annoying and I don't want it to ruin my media is like, I'm not going to change anything. It's no matter how much I rant and rave, it's not going to change.
Nothing's going to change.
All.
We can't talk to these. This isn't even. We can't even speak Japanese. And like, I feel like this is a conclusion we come to with a lot of these things that we unpack and complain about, and then we try to introspect on stuff. But it's just I guess I feel like this is problematic, but it seems like generally we're moving in a more, Japan is getting along in that way, and I guess in the same way that America is. I guess in some ways, especially the treatment of women, is getting better over time. Maybe we just got to that a little bit sooner. Not that we still don't have our own problems in America, but I think that's part of it.
It goes back and forth. Like, just an example of Japan is like, abortion is free and legal and sometimes encouraged.
See, we should get on that train.
You'd think they would make that illegal. They need kids.
They need kids.
Yeah, but nobody wants it to be their kid. So.
Yeah, true. Somebody else has to have a kid.
But I was going to say, have you guys ever stopped reading or disavowed an anime because of this stuff?
In Another World of Baseball's World and No Game No Life, because there was some really icky brother-sister incest, which as somebody who's close to my sister, that stuff is extra double icky for me.
So,
but by and large, usually something will radiate that energy enough that I just don't come near it in the first place.
I mean, if you listen to the last episode of Heroin Addiction, what I said about manhwa is true for basically all manga and anime, is that I don't drop stuff. Sometimes I will put something on the back burner and not get back to it for a while, but like I basically only just don't continue things after the first or second chapter or episode. Once I've actually gotten into something, I'm invested in that. There's certainly things where I'm like, oh, this is gross and weird, and I'm annoyed by it. But there's
something else
me.
there. Like it's that equation of like, is there enough for me to kind of grin and bear it through this to get to something else? And in the cases I had, and I'm sure there's other I don't remember, the answer was no, I can't. Ben, have you had any of those? That's the suggester of this question.
Yeah. Most. I would say pretty much basically the reason I got out of anime and manga for a long time was a lot of this stuff. And I would say when I was a horny teen, probably when I was 14, I read a lot of Ken Akamatsu, Love Hina.
Yeah, you've described your regrettable books that you still have on your shelf that you wish to dismantle.
They're gone. They're gone now.
We never got to burn. Was it Love Hina? Which one we were going to burn? Chapter?
You were going to burn Love Hina.
Okay, but it's gone now.
It's gone now.
Dang. I don't even know if I can have a fire pit at this new place.
So I threw out all the Ken Akamatsu stuff because Ken Akamatsu is one who, like, this is one where it's not just I don't wonder about the author's intention. I absolutely know. He has he's like the spokesman for some group of artists that will defend until they die the Lolita complex.
Oh no.
Yeah, they like Japan, the Japanese government really started trying to crack down on the 400-year-old dragons.
I appreciate that. Japanese government, you're doing something right.
And he was saying, I think I mentioned this on the podcast before, but he said something about it being the West bringing its own moral quandaries to Japan.
Yeah.
And they don't need the West's morality; they have their own. And
you can have your own culture. Can it just not include pedophilia?
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. I feel like that's a pretty global thing.
There's definitely universal truths. Yeah. And don't sexualize children is one of those.
I feel like that's a pretty easy, keen one to latch on to.
You might be able to make an argument as to like what constitutes a child.
What constitutes a child? Like, where the legal age is? Sure, fine, cultural, yada yada yada.
There's certain
ones where it's like, this is a child.
Yeah, it can be very obvious.
Yeah, big icky.
No, I mean, like all of that. Draw the line, easy line, prepubescent. That's most of the stuff.
That's the hard line.
That has been like so prevalent, and I actually remember reading. I think this was in Pure Imagination. They were talking about BL, boy love. It got big, and it's actually in Japan almost exclusively started as straight women fetishizing gay men.
Mm.
And like they were not comics drawn by gay men for gay men. They were comics drawn by straight women for straight women. And there was some guy who basically started the lolly movement who said, and I don't believe a word of this, but said he did it because BL made him feel uncomfortable, so he wanted the girls drawing it to feel uncomfortable.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. And he thought that was like a solid defense. Like he's like, no, I know it's gross.
Image of a manga art I saw recently that said he was leading a bunch of shoujo stuff, and he said, I can draw better than that, and then I don't remember what he made. This is not an interesting anecdote, but I was really worried he was going to be that guy. I'm like, that guy seemed cool. He got into something. He's like, I could do that better, but yeah, I don't think it was this.
This is back in the 70s.
That's awful. I hate that.
That's
rancid.
It's obviously a lie because like there are other things you could have done to make those women uncomfortable other than
also, the obvious one would have been like lesbian stuff.
Yeah.
No, not a fan. Don't like it.
Things with people who are able to consent.
I have but yeah, I mean, I guess that's like, that was the thing. Like the one story I've heard about the logic behind lolly was, no, I don't actually like young girls. I'm using it to punish women punish and intimidate women.
I
It's
still
like-
don't like that. I extra don't like that now. That's one of
Not
my
the
major problems with a
flex.
lot of this is because
Yeah.
a lot of shonen work that we read doesn't respect women at all.
That's so weird.
It's not that hard.
That's like-
you can still sexualize and fantasize. It's fine. You just have to respect them. It's not that difficult.
That's like, so you know that thing that's really bad and no one likes and everybody thinks shouldn't be a thing?
Yeah.
It's worse.
You know that thing that if you go to prison for this, actual other criminals will beat the shit out of you for?
Yeah.
On
Yeah,
site?
actual murderers don't want to be associated with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Does this not crush your brain? Is like, if the hard guys are like, no. If the insane hard guys are like, I feel like that said something.
Yeah.
I know. Nah, it's so like I said, I played devil's advocate a little bit here, but I do
appreciate
think
that, Ben.
There is a problem.
Yeah.
And it is to some extent. I do think it is easier in Japan to get. I think the Japanese government doesn't pay a lot of attention to what goes into comics and what goes into cartoons. And in America, totally the opposite. Christian moralists had their fingers in everything.
That's why Disney doesn't get to make gay cartoons anymore, because all the conservatives are really mad.
I mean, to
Yeah.
be fair, I think it's hard to get it into TV and movies in America as well, not just children's stuff.
Well, and I
Well, it
can say
was.
queer stuff and not like sexualizing stuff, because we don't usually do that in cartoons. Somebody who's paying attention to a lot of cartoons.
Yeah.
Not that we're getting any now, between multiple reasons. We're in a cartoons dark age, guys. It sucks.
Well, there's all these anime that are coming out.
That's why we're talking about all this anime stuff, because they don't have a strike and their industry's humming along mostly fine.
Oh, that's probably why we were here. Like, I liked comic books as a kid, and I really like old comic books from the 20s and stuff. If our whole industry hadn't been crippled, I would probably be a big fan of American animation. But
Yep.
now it's
We're kind of
Japan's the only place where
they're
making anything
anime
for
Superman
an older
right
audience.
now, and that's about it when it comes to non-adult
Anime
cartoons coming out at the
Superman.
moment that are worth looking at.
Yeah.
Oh, one more shout out as we finish this and move on to our annoying thing, because I had it in my original notes for this episode. I want to do another big shout out to Akiba Maid War, that anime that's about maids. It's like Yakuza that we did an entire giant segment on that I still love about the intro's localization. A show where constantly there's a bunch of cute girls in dresses, and to my memory of watching it, there is not a single freaking panty shot in it, and nobody's made to feel uncomfortable at that stuff. And
I mean,
just want to
except
give
for the
them
people being murdered.
big hands off. You see people getting shot. There's a moment again. It just feels like it is constantly, even if it's silly at moments, of respecting women. There's a part where there's a UFC fight and they're wearing cutesy, scantily clad outfits, and it never feels like fully icky. It just
Yeah.
feels like, well, yeah, this is just what we're doing. This is just this universe. And I think it's just because two women are having strong feelings
You know
about
what?
they're about in the rig, and it just feels very like, oh, of course.
That connected something for me. Thinking about like the maid cafes
Yeah.
and like
Hostess cafes.
there's people who go to those because they're like, oh, they're wearing the skimpy maid outfits, and
Skimpy, though. That's why I love them.
I think that's, for me, it sort of goes along the same lines of like a strip club, which I also am confused about.
But it's more closed. The maid cafes, by
Right.
and large, unless there's one that's specifically supposed to be
Yeah.
like that, you're usually wearing more clothes than a normal person on the street wearing shorts and a shirt.
But it's that kind of thing, and I think this connects with my annoyance of, lewd things, bordering on pornographic things in normal entertainment, which is like, you go to a strip club, and you're sitting, and you can just look at these women who are either in their underwear or naked, and it's like, that's it. You're just gonna look at them.
Dude, you used to have to go in the woods and hope you found a magazine. That was just how the world was, and there's a reason all the Hooters are closing. Like, this has to take new forms that are more acceptable.
Can
Because
I
again,
give one?
go for it, Ben.
Sorry, can I give
No,
one
you're good.
like pedantic, really pedantic thing?
Go for it.
I loathe in this anime community the word lewd. It is such, I hate it because it's
Wow.
like a euphemism. It's a euphemism for what they're really talking. Like, I don't think of lewd as being like a lewd joke is like a body joke. You know, it's like a sexy joke. What so often people are described as lewd is like just straight up pornography.
Yeah.
Okay, because usually I use it when I think about that word in my vocabulary. It's usually when it's like they're holding hands, and I go, "Oh, how lewd!" But I'm using it, not ironically, but I'm using it sarcastically.
Like sarcastically,
yeah. It's a bit.
It's such an old man yells at cloud thing. I hate that. That's not what lewd means. you guys have made it a euphemism, and now like the most depraved shit is described as lewd.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, so let's ending. Not, I don't know if mission statement's the word that I want.
I don't have an ending for this, as opposed to a lot of times. I'm still annoyed by these things. No one has properly walked me through anything. This was not an effective therapy session for me.
I guess the position I wish to speak and argue from is
take my shirt off.
You can hear it on the audio.
You're still just sitting there.
I think there's a way to do titillation in cheesecake that isn't icky. I think there is such a thing as healthy horniness.
I just want it to fit in the story
where nobody has to be made uncomfortable or lesser for it.
Yeah.
It exists in the world, and I think it's coming, again, admittedly through my specific lens of Shonen Jump. I think it's getting better at it in certain ways. Again, the like second biggest thing in there is really keen on doing a good job with it. But
why is it that somehow the portrayal of just absolute degeneracy of Chainsaw Man is somehow like a really good depiction of like...
Oh man, we didn't even get into that.
Yeah.
So right at the end where like his whole point is that he wants to touch a boob, and in almost any other manga it's like, this is dumb and I hate it, but here it's like, I get it, and it's the magic of Chainsaw Man, my dude. It just somehow taps into some human thing. It doesn't it feels like there's something. It's not 100% lizard brain. There is something else going on.
It's an exploration.
Power is a full character, and not just what's the meme words for it? A slightly hidden thing of the author's fetish or whatever. What's the phrase?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about? A barely disguised something of the author's fetish, where like certain characters go, you're like, you just know the author's just into this, and that's why this character is here, or that's why this situation is happening.
Yeah, I'm blanking on.
You got to be good at it.
But no,
you got to sneak feed in like Tarantino does.
And that's exactly it, because like, even though it's up there in your face of, oh, I want to touch a boob, I want to get laid, whatever, but like, it's an exploration of the fact that this boy has been repressed his entire life. It
truly was it pathos or whatever the Greek, like, there is something, again, that's my whole point of this. There is something there to it.
And that exploration of like, when he gets what he wants, it's not actually what he wants.
I don't remember it being drawn sexually.
Yeah. I mean, he did grope power, but besides that...
No, but, like, you can do things without them. You can do sexual related things without them. That's the whole, like, it's a thing I go back to a lot that I remember. I don't remember who described it, where it's just, like, it's really hard to, in film, shoot a rape scene that is not some way titillating. Just by the virtue of it. And it's such an uncomfortable thing to have to approach, where it's just, like, I don't want to be, but also there's a certain... And it's just, like... Mm-hmm. You got to make it in a certain way to be like, no, this is uncomfortable.
Can I say, like, there's one joke in Chainsaw Man when he squeezes Power's boob, and it's in the anime. And it's when she is not into it at all. And she screams, Kimochi! And she's pretending to be like, she's acting the way people act. She's pretending
to be titillated.
And it's very clearly like an alien trying to do what she has seen the humans do.
Oh my
and
gosh,
she doesn't quite understand it.
A character moment for everybody involved that doesn't feel like it's just a moment for titillation. That is what I am asking of my anime and manga. It's like, I'm here for it. We have been watching Zom 100, and there's a cute samurai girl with big boobs, and I'm excited to meet, and I hope she doesn't disappoint me. And we'll see. I hope they respect her.
So I guess my takeaway is demand more from your mangaka. Like, don't go for the easy titillation, the easy sale of sex sells. Like, make it make sense.
Keep prayer in manga.
They go to the Shinto shrine. It's enough.
Okay.
And just a reminder,
I think we all know, I mean, good Christian prayer.
Yeah, I know, Ben. I know.
Just a reminder, if you're over 18, I don't know if we have any listeners that are under 18.
Oh,
I hope not. But if you are over 18, you're allowed to just look at porn. You can just do that.
Somebody's probably drawn porn to the anime characters.
Almost certainly. Like
99.999%
at least. So we touched on this just in the slightest bit in the first segment, but
Sorry,
there's
could you say
one.
it less sexy?
We touched it very lightly in the first segment.
Roped it.
Well, that's pretty accurate.
Oh,
because
God.
there's one particular part of Japanese culture that it's so strange, which is this obsession with boobs. And it's sort of outside of the realm of, oh, this is too horny. It's just sort of all present.
Omnipresent, yes.
And because I see it now, to be fair, I don't consume a lot of non-manga and anime Japanese media, but from time to time I do. And even there, like on Japanese game shows, talk shows, those kind of things, you still see this where like even it's ingrained in women's minds that you have to have big boobs. And that's a thing that even women, they will grope other women and go, oh, your boobs are so big. Like,
that's definitely a thing I remember in anime. Again, I don't know how much that exists in
like,
actual
I think it's
meat space reality.
most prevalent in anime and manga, but it does exist outside of that as well. And, you know, obviously, I mean, boobs are pretty great, generally speaking, but like overall, it seems like the Japanese have more of an obsession with it.
I think I'm gonna have to put on my devil's advocate hat again.
Yeah, die for it, Ben. Like I love this middle. The segment number 2 went from just isekai segment to isekai sensei segment.
Well,
Why?
well, specifically, boobies,
Why can't a
boobies,
woman's
boobies.
chest be more like
Oh,
It's all guys think about these days. Well, they're idiots. Show me a boob man, and I'll show you a no-brain, no-class knuckle dragger who knows nothing of the fairer sex. They don't get it. You can't take the measure of a good woman just by ogling her chest. There are far more important things. See, if you're enlightened like I am, then you know that the real show is down below. The booty, baby, that's where it's at. Nothing trumps the rump, my friend, and anyone who can't see that is either blind or a fool. That's why I say, enough with the mass boob hysteria. It's time to set this right. It's time to give the ass the respect it deserves.
Hell yeah. Was this whole segment just for that bit? Hello,
That's
this
like
was
a
a monologue from
Space
episode
Dandy
1 of
quote.
Space Dandy,
Yes,
the
that is
English
from-
dub.
Yeah.
That is from our hero, Space Dandy.
A decade ago?
Maybe, yeah.
I will still. You've heard me on this podcast, literally earlier in this episode, but on other episodes of it, I will always say Japan is finally learning about butts. They're finally understanding butts.
But that's exactly it.
Close. They still think Jennifer Lawrence has like a big butt.
She has a nice butt.
She does. Don't get me
Tall
wrong.
women.
But
Butts like Jennifer Lawrence.
if I were to like
Sorry, I just saw
name
that
like
episode recently.
if I were to name the most attractive ass I could think of in cinema, it's not Jennifer Lawrence.
Do you think Japan could handle like Nicki Minaj and like Anaconda or something? Like, would they just explode?
I feel like I've seen some Japanese documentaries that make me think that they probably welcome it, at least in some
Okay.
circles.
Okay.
I don't think they have a problem
It's
with
getting
butts.
sillier. Please understand.
I think it's
Please understand. I'm becoming sillier. I don't
think
know what
it's-
Brad's up to.
it's more the obsession with boobs.
We had a
Like,
whole restaurant.
Opie,
chain called
fucking One
Hooters.
Punch Man wears it on his shirt.
Yeah. The reason that monologue from Space Dandy is hilarious is in part because of the Japanese obsession with boobs. Like, it wouldn't be as culturally shocking for that to be the first thing that he says in the whole show if there wasn't an obsession like that. And, you know, there's certain parts of the sexuality of cultures that makes sense to me because of cultural factors. The whole thing with Japanese pornography and like being oppressed and after World War II and all that stuff. But like, what is it specifically about boobs that became the thing?
Brad, we're an anime and manga podcast. I don't know. Ben, do you have your devil's advocate notes? Your point?
I don't think Japan is any more or less obsessed with boobs than anyone else.
Really?
I think we just have a really particular... I think it comes back to the stuff we talked about in segment 1. I think we just have a really particular window about it. And also,
I can't think of...
I don't want to... I think there's a little something there. The whole my point of they're figuring out butts more and more, but like not enough to get up about.
I can't think of any Western media where, women just get groped by other women because they have big boobs, or the main character is walking around in a sweatshirt that just says boobs on it.
Well, I think that goes back a little bit to like, I don't think it's as socially acceptable for us to say it, but they did have to pretend that the nipples in the Hooters sign were owl eyes.
He makes a point. We are... Both America and Japan are puritanical about sex, but in different ways. So each of us probably looks at the other one and goes, "Oh my gosh, you're so
Like I honestly think if you were to wear a shirt
concerned
around
about these things."
I don't know. This is changing, I guess, but like, if you were to wear a shirt around that said boobs on it, or like female body inspector, even that, something like as like,
you would be looked at. You would be looked at. I would not want to talk to you.
But women walk
you.
around in sweatpants and shorts that say juicy on them.
I have a pair of booty shorts that says, "Oh shoot, it's a line from Darkest Dungeon. What is it? Overconfidence is a slow and serious, but serious killer." No, that's not it. Whatever that Darkest Dungeon line is, like. I also just like funny, weird messages that don't belong. I think there's like those booty shorts that are like nuclear radiation, like safety phrases or something. I don't remember.
Yeah,
but I'd put it this way: I don't think. I think the average Japanese person's attitude towards like groping breasts or breast envy or all that stuff, I think they're probably about as awkward, if not more awkward, than the average American in terms of like going up to somebody and commenting on it.
yeah.
But I would say when it comes to the otaku types who have no shame, America and Japan are pretty even, I think. I had a friend who had a mouse pad that was 2 boobs, and he insisted, like, where the like wrist rest to prevent like carpal tunnel.
Wasn't it an anime character?
Yeah, it probably was. But my point is, he bought it, and he was as American as any of us, unfortunately. Like, it sells just as well here. It's just you can't make that here.
Yeah.
Somebody would shut you down. I mean, you probably can now, but like, and now you have like Adam and Eve.
A fan made one that was
sponsoring
Donkey
everything.
Kong, and his pecs are the wrist.
I saw one that was Zorro.
Zorro. I know there was also another one of Zarya from Overwatch, and it's her biceps.
But we had like Vampirella. We had
not Stripperella.
Stripperella. Barbarella.
A lot of Ellas. Ellas.
We had all of those, and they all had gigantic boobs. Pamela Anderson, that was like her whole career.
That's a good point.
Again, it's like we learned with segment 1. In some ways, we are ahead of the curve. In some ways, we're behind the curve, but not by that far. Like,
I guess we
through exploration of the booty. We're just ahead of the curve on Japan, but we are also behind compared to some other places.
In America, I vividly remember a conversation when I was in the 7th grade of some people sitting next to me just having figured out that the Japanese make cartoon porn. And they were like, can you imagine that? A cartoon that's pornography.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
In the 20s.
Yeah. And like, I was way ahead of the curve on that. But yeah, that shit got shut down. And in Japan, it didn't get shut down. But that doesn't mean the demand doesn't exist in the United States.
Yeah.
It's just no one was allowed to supply it.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, there's our thing in America, because that's the whole thing. It's because, like, that's the thing. Is like, you can go back into the 20s and 30s and find lewd cartoons, but they just stop happening because either they didn't make or they weren't getting made, because the Hays, I don't remember if the Hays Code is the animation, but, like, there was a bunch of crackdown on all of that in American media, and that's why you don't see those things.
I
Horror
think
was, like,
American-
illegal until, like, the 70s.
American culture in general sees cartoons as something for children. And therefore,
Even back then, when
sexualizing-
cartoons were new.
yeah, sexualizing a cartoon is more depraved in like our culture's morality. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean,
Well, I don't
give me
think,
your comments
I
if
think
you disagree.
in the beginning, I think you were right to an extent. I think in the beginning they didn't, because it was like everybody saw cartoons because they played before the movies you saw. At least to my knowledge, I've never been in the 30s or the 20s, so I can't speak to it 100% accurately, but none of us have. But, like, it was the general thing of, you know, again, I go to the Hays Code where it's like, even in live action stuff, it's like, you can't show crime stuff, or if you do, they always have to be losing. If there's a couple, they can't sleep in the same bed. They have to sleep in different beds. Like, there was all this archaic stuff that was related to that thing that we had in America. But it was before all of our time. But we're still living in some level of the you know, the outcomes of those things, because certain threads, certain branches of that tree got trimmed down or got held back for a really long time. It's, you know, the tree grows in different ways depending on what you cut and what you hold back and what you let grow, and it can take different shapes from place to place, and that's how it is.
I have had people from India ask me if we thought bikinis were like as indecent as they did. Like, I forget how they phrased the question to me, but it was like, we don't have that in India. Women don't walk around the beach in bikinis. And they were asking me, like, basically, if it was like your wife or your sister or something, would you be okay with her wearing a bikini? And I said, yeah, because to me, like, that's just what you wear at the beach. Like, it's just, you see it so much. I don't see it as like a taboo or sexy. Like, I know they're not.
There's also the
trying to be
danger
sexy.
involved. Like,
The danger.
I'm serious. Like, have you ever seen the videos of like white tourists that go to Bangladesh or India or whatever, and they're like sitting on a beach and they're just surrounded by people just staring at them?
Well, because they don't see it. And like, that's not polite at all. But what I'm saying is, like, to the Indian person, our culture is obsessed with women's bodies because we sell bikinis and we advertise bikinis and they're on every magazine. And
I mean, I can see how they might.
But to us, it
but
is normalized. But in certain ways of the Japanese stuff, it's not. So it is alien to us.
But
It's
also,
strange to us, and
I
it
just
seems obsessive, but it's not.
I think it's something that they wouldn't be able to do if, you know, an Indian woman showed up on an Indian beach in a bikini. She would probably be in danger. Now, obviously,
yeah, but there was a time that was true in America too.
Right. Well,
It's just a cultural difference.
right.
Again,
But where I'm going-
different countries, different people are at different parts of the curve. In
Where I'm
different
going
places.
with it is, I think the boob obsession, like the One Punch Man wearing a boob shirt and the like boob honking and stuff, I think it's in the similar. I sometimes wonder if it's as sexual as we interpret it.
I don't think it
Or
is.
if it's just like blue comedy.
I
Yeah.
think it's played
Yeah.
for a joke. I mean he's wearing a hoodie that says boobs on it. It says Opie, but it
has a
says
picture of
boobs on it. And yeah, there's the little
comic-y boob.
lines
Yeah, they're not,
with the
like,
little
explicit,
dots.
but yeah.
It's obviously a joke.
It's
in
played
that
for
context.
a gag, but it's also strange.
But there are
us.
also contexts in certain series where, like, the women go into the bath together and then the one grabs the other one's boobs
Yeah,
from
but
behind.
that's
She's like,
usually
oh,
written
they're so
by a
big. I
male.
wish I had
It's
these.
usually written by a male author.
Yeah, probably.
Acting their, again, the author's barely disguised fetish
Yeah.
or sexual desire.
But-
And you're expanding that out to a nation.
It's
which
also,
doesn't work.
you know, it's framed specifically around the breasts. Like, they aren't feeling each other up in other ways, you know?
Brad, how long have you been thinking about this?
Oh, I think about it all the time.
I like that you're like, none of this icky sexual stuff has ever stopped me from reading anything. Also, boobs. I can't stop thinking about Japan thinking about boobs.
Well, I think like there's, to an extent, I agree with you on that one, because I was not aware that breast envy was like a fetish until 2 years ago. and from what I understand, I'm going to old man explain this to you guys. Breast envy is a fetish where a man wants to look at a woman being insecure about her breasts.
That is so specific.
Yeah,
I know
it
more
is.
specific ones than that, so that one's child's play when it comes to kinks, but it's still strange.
Like if you've seen any of this stuff in anime or manga, as soon as Ben says that, you're like, oh yeah, of course,
It
that's
comes from
exactly what
somewhere.
it is. But it's still, it seems so specific. Like you talk about, oh, he's got a foot fetish. It's like, okay, I mean, yeah, I can see that. Like,
Category tags
but then,
have
like,
to be born from something. I
Right.
was thinking about that recently, which this is somewhat anime related. I'm thinking of cartoons and like children's media where it's just like, did somebody have this from something from before even that and put it in there? Or were these just in there and enough people got quote unquote activated by this that it became something that enough people, this became their thing?
yeah.
I think there's a
Like
reality.
all the weird stuff. I could point to literally almost any episode of like Totally Spies, but there's like a general hit list of like strange kinks that I can go, this showed up in old cartoons a lot, and when I say old cartoons I mean like from the 90s. And there's just
So
like, oh,
it's-
that's why these are tags.
The kids grew up with it, and then
But my question is, did the people making it, did one of them have it and sneak it in? Or was it just like, because then it's like, where did they get that? Like, are
Right.
people getting like genuine? I guess to bring it back to freaking Japanese culture a little bit, like, did people get a macro fetish from Godzilla, or was there something before that, or was that their start, and then they went on to make stuff, and then they passed it on to the next generation in a different but similar form? See the thing everybody points out with the Disney's Robin Hood making a bunch of people a furry, like that is an activation piece of media.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you've never
unintentionally,
seen a furry, then you wouldn't know to be attracted to it.
If
You
you're
wouldn't know it's
taking
a
this in at a
possibility.
time that is very formative, where just two pieces can rub together, I'm talking metaphorically, and just ignite that fire in your brain for essentially ever, and the meaning is just very strange and explicit, specific to you. It's like, where does that...
oh yeah, no.
Does it start? Did somebody... Because it's like, there's more of that now because there's more things to be activated by as a kid, because cartoons and children's media, or just media in general, there's just more of everything there was than in the 50s or in the 10s. Like, what are you getting activated by at that point when you're living and there's no television, there's no phone, and there's no internet, and you maybe get books occasionally? Like,
I have no doubt that Disney created furries. Like, yes.
they were around before that, though.
But like,
I mean, literally, like, they generated a lot of them, but they were not the patient zero in any stretch.
Hey,
But
the
you wouldn't-
Egyptians were leading the way
Yes,
in furry
correct.
technology.
true enough. It wouldn't be like it is today without Disney, without those old animated movies.
Yeah, but again, there was other things.
definitely-
Even before that, there was the beginning of a lot of animation in the West was a lot of talking animals.
Yeah.
Like, Foxy Loxy walked so Robin Hood could run and be really sexy. Be a sexy
But no, I think
Tumblr man.
there's like a grain of truth, right? Because like, I'm sure women notice societally, accepted standards of beauty that other women have more of. Like, oh, she's got great eyelashes. Probably, yeah, she's got great boobs. And it's just like guys are constantly just measuring dongs.
It's weird.
But nobody thinks that's sexy.
no.
But when you're probably right though, when a guy saw a girl notice another girl's boobs, he was like, "That's kind of hot."
I want to
and then
present
it's
a thing to you in this vein that is mostly a joke, but has a hint. Much of your thing has a kernel of truth in it, of a gag that I will always love from calling back to the Super Best Friends, where they talked about there's the boob window, bring us the ball window, and it was a gag and it was joking, but it's like that part is not visually available to be seen in general polite company, where like you can get a understanding of a boob. This episode's getting weird, guys.
Getting?
It's been weird, but it's getting. I don't know what I'm getting
started.
I think the mission statement of this episode was let's
to
get
be
weird.
It was true.
Yeah.
Yes, this was the cursed horny episode as I described it.
I guess maybe the thing I'm most annoyed about is people putting fetishes, their own fetishes, in an otherwise enjoyable piece of media.
I can respect it if you can tell a great thing and get it in there correctly, because I've seen it a couple times, and I've got, as someone who's got a weird grown up with a weird kink, I've got mad respect for somebody who can sneak them in the way that doesn't feel very alienating. But the moment it feels like you're just doing this for boner factors, I'm like, ew, gross, get it out of here. It shouldn't be here. So much with all of it, I think if you come in with a very experienced pen and you can sneak it on in there good, and you're also just good at making the thing you're making, I say props to you. Homie, don't kink shame.
The pen,
Homie will kink disrespect depending on the environment, but
the pen is very powerful.
I'm going back to like wanting to make a meme cut of like Brad hates fun. Like,
A little bit, yeah.
Brad is an old man. He yells at a cloud.
I just wish the women could keep their clothes on. I don't understand why
I want the
everybody
women
wants
to keep
see
their clothes on and the
nude
children
women.
to keep off my lawn.
Listen, if
Stop thinking about boobs.
if a mangaka wants to draw hentai, they should, and that should
What if
be
they don't have time because they have a deadline, Brad? They want to draw some boobs.
they would find time.
What? Yeah, I know. But admittedly, I mean, again, Oda wants
What
to
if
draw boobs.
everything-
Boa Hancock shows up and he draws some boobs.
What if everything could just be sexy all the time?
But then nothing would be sexy. That's the secret.
that is the
If we
problem.
were all
That is the
sexy,
problem.
no one would be sexy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd be okay with that.
I gotta save a little for my husband, Like,
Oh, there you go.
Well,
gotta bottle my frustration and take it to the bedroom. I can't be releasing it on all these anime all the time.
I think part of the I think part of the problem that I have is that I will be sitting there at night reading my chapters that came out today,
You will be titillated before bed.
and there'll be some naked boobs, and now I'm like, God damn it! Now I have to stop doing this and go do something else for a while, and then come back to this. It's disruptive.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know. I'm glad you were honest enough to be just very clear about your process. So
Well, now I don't have enough blood to think anymore.
honestly, I can't fault you entirely if that's the thought process.
It gets in the way.
So big it covers the screen.
Well,
We're gonna have to.
I do have an ultra wide monitor, so it fills up my whole desk.
Not what I was joking about, Brad.
I was gonna say it's actually a serious problem. He just passes out anytime he sees something horny.
So big.
all the blood.
blood goes there and it's a skeleton.
No, but we gotta have like a romance novel thing sometimes, because if you think anime and manga are horny, you haven't read what all
But
these
that's
anime-
where
No,
it's
but that's-
supposed
yeah,
to
that's-
be.
that's what I was
Brad's
saying.
point, and I agree with
That's
him.
what's
Like,
supposed
I get
to be.
it.
That was the point.
I've read
Well-
romantic smut. I love it because it's where it's supposed to be.
That's what I
but
signed
like-
up for.
what's
I'm
the
not
difference
watching
between
teen
a romantic
superheroes.
What's the difference between a romantic comedy and a romantic smut? I mean, like, is
They
Konosuba
could-
smut, or should it be?
I mean,
Konosuba
is
definitely skirts the
smutty.
line for me, because it's like they
Darkness is a fetish.
they play a lot of it for comedy,
Yes.
and I get the comedy, and some of it I think is great, but then a lot of times I feel like it crosses the line, and it can get distracting. And
But
so,
is it do you this is where I talk about my prejudices, that usually it's not things that I like, but when it's things that I like that titillate me, I go, yes, I'm happy this is present here.
well, I think that's probably because
why
you have
Darkness is
so
my favorite.
few things
I'm very much looking for scraps.
that when it's your thing, you're like, finally.
So when Darkness shows up and I go, man,
But I like so
Hell
many
yeah,
things that for me, it's like, don't mix these together. I'll get this from my other spot over here.
you're already served. I am a constantly underserved market in all things in life, Brad. I can
guess-
get what I can get when I get it.
I guess I need to be more accepting I say that, and I've never dropped anything, but I guess I need to be more
I know
accepting.
you've got no problem. You continue on. Nothing will stop you.
I have to be more accepting for people like you who can't get what they want in as many places.
So I just want to read you a piece of advice. This is my ending lesson. These are my final thoughts.
Yeah.
It's a piece of poetry from one of my favorite scholars, Bare Naked Ladies. You got to get in tune with Sailor Moon, because that cartoon has got the boom anime babes that make me think the wrong thing. It's been there since the beginning.
Sage wisdom.
How old were they again?
Don't
Not
think
Bare
about it.
Naked Ladies.
They were cousins. They were cousins. They were not lovers.
Sailor
they were
Moon.
cousins.
Sailor Moon was...
Right? Cousins, sisters, or cousins?
They were... Well, in the dub, they're cousins.
That's what I'm talking about.
They're cousins that
yeah.
hold hands.
Yes.
Kiss
And,
Kiss each other like families kiss each other, not like lovers kiss each other.
Now, in Sailor Moon... So this is another just weird addendum, though. Sailor Moon, they're 14.
All of them?
Mask is... yeah, they're all the same. All the
How old
same
is Tuxedo Mask? This is the make or breaker.
Tuxedo Mask is 16.
That's okay.
In Japan, I believe the age of consent is 16. And that is why, and 16 is also the age you start high school. So 15, 16 is when you're out of junior high and into high school. High school is more optional in Japan. You can just not go.
I feel like 14 to 16 is basically acceptable.
Yeah, I would say that's fine.
Like 14,
I know when they become
17
16
is...
when it's 16, 18, things get weird legally, but in
Right.
context, I don't have any struggle with that.
I think like as a teenager, probably 3 years is stretching it.
Yeah.
But no, you will find in a lot of the Japanese stuff, they start treating people like they're adults when they're 16.
Yeah, in high school.
Not
Yeah.
adults.
And that is not normal for us, but that is very much a cultural
You ever
difference
talk to
because-
somebody in high school? They seem like, at least to me, they seem like baby children. There is a kid that we have working as a junior that rejoined our team recently who's fresh out of college, and I feel like I'm speaking to just a completely different form of humanity when I speak to him. He just seems like...
I mean, your brain is still jello
Yeah.
till sometime in your mid-20s.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
like, what do we expect?
I truly, like, I watched a thing, same thing as the Ashton Kutcher thing. Dane Cook apparently, like, married a girl 26 years younger than him or something.
Yeah.
Ooh, gross.
And I was like,
no.
how could you stand to be around
Yeah,
her?
why would you want to deal with that?
Like, she's just telling you about like, yeet and YOLO, and I don't even know what language they speak anymore.
How about what the French president? What's his name? His wife. Is
Yeah, his teacher.
he's like
He
in
married
his
his teacher.
his late 40s, and she's in her
Ugh.
70s.
Okay, this is getting
Macron. They're
Yeah.
getting divorced.
good.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I did hear that. Oh, you know who else is getting divorced? Hugh Jackman.
Okay.
Nobody cares. It's a big thing on Reddit right now.
I'm sure.
They've
Not the
been
Reddit I'm on.
27 years.
Didn't come up.
They're 27 married for 27 years. It's sad.
Huge.
I didn't read about why.
Unimportant. I would like to say one final thing while I'm thinking about things that the localizations did back in the day. That when I learned about it, it blew my freaking mind. That is also anime boob related. That in Zatch Bell, there was a character named Parco Folgore who was an Italian ladies' man.
The boob dance.
And the song in English was just, hey, hey, let's dance all day, boing, boing. And I learned many years later as an adult that he is singing about boobs, and that is very explicit in the Japanese version. That is just
He
talking about
literally-
him wanting to watch and grab and touch bouncing boobs.
They're
And my
obsessed.
opinion of him from just like, tee-hee, he's a funny, goofy ladies man who, you know, is probably projecting a lot more, went to, oh, gross, no, I prefer give me the dub localization version of the time. If this ever comes out dubbed again in America, please just make it, hey, hey, let's dance all day, boing, boing again, because I don't like him being a creepy, I want to grope women song guy.
My wife sent me a TikTok of that song and asked me what he was saying. And I said, he's saying the word he uses for grope. It's literally like grope. It's
Yeah.
not like grab or squeeze.
Touch or
It's,
anything. Like, there's nothing fun. It is actively coming at you.
It's the verb means to pluck, like fruit.
Ugh. Don't like it. Parco
That's
Fulgore.
worse.
Stick to your English. Stick to your original English localization. People decry localizations, but that one's one we got. We got the Shadow Realm, which is much better than them just killing people. It's way more effed up.
How did they bring people back from the Shadow Realm if they murdered them?
I did not. And in very early Dragon Ball Z dubs, they talked about sending people to another dimension.
Yeah.
Instead of killing. Which was true, because they went to Hiffle, which was another dimension. So technically true.
Wait till my hand grows back.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it?
That was a TN line. When Nappa blows his hand off, TN was like, wait till that grows back. And I was like, okay. I mean, I get he has 3 eyes. I don't
watch
know.
early Dragon Ball Z dubs and see what they
That dub
with.
fucked me up so much because I had no idea what the hell TN was for like a decade.
Dude, I'm so excited to go back and watch 4Kids One Piece. I'm like chomping at the bit to go back.
Yo ho ho, took a bite of gum gum.
The 4Kids rap is super dope. I've been watching it on loop. It's the best. Okay, we've gotten way off the thing. Brad, do you have any closing remarks?
I think I learned something. I think I need to be more forgiving of all this ridiculous lewdness. Listen, boobs are great. Butts are great.
Do not kink shame, merely kink disrespect.
Again, just to sort of, round this out, I look at porn. It's great. But, yeah, I want smarter media, I guess.
What if I had 2 sexy scientists describing the theory of relativity in an increasing state of undress?
I feel like they'd be very distracting. Unless the act of them undressing somehow literally helped describe the topics they were talking about.
I mean, I'd read it. I don't know if
it
I would.
It incentivizes repeat watching.
But no, I'd be too distracted. It feels like they would also
You'd
be
osmosis
distracted.
it. I was going to say, after a certain point, you're just like, okay, I know this part, but what is she actually saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to be talking about a series that I might describe as a problematic favorite.
Complicated.
It's complicated. So, Fire Force.
Fire Force.
Fire Force. I really like Fire Force. I know that generally speaking, you guys aren't super up on it, but it's still an enjoyable watch from time to time.
We have only watched it, correct? I don't think any of us have read the manga.
Yeah, it's on my reading list. I haven't picked it up yet, but
I wonder if we'll get another season.
I think
Seems weird.
It should get another season because it didn't wrap up.
Yeah, it's fairly popular. It is. I guess we should describe what it is first, right? For people that don't know.
Yeah. Do you want to?
Okay. From what I remember, it is a place where there are. Oh gosh, I'm going to mix it up with the other fantasy firefighting things I've seen.
The apocalypse has occurred.
The apocalypse has occurred. We're in Japan. There is groups called there are fire forces that are part religion, part literally firefighters, fighting essentially demons of people that just explode and burst into flame all of a sudden. But also some of them are at odds and have powers. And the series is about them finding that, and it's a very, I've described it before, it is a very out of time of our current era of anime, where it's got big, I'm a teenager edgelord energy, for better or for worse. And I think that's why a lot of people like it, because there's a lot of people who didn't stop being teenagers, and I disrespect their opinions.
I think there's a lot of similarities, parallels to a lot of other popular shonen series, like My Hero or a Demon Slayer or something like that.
They build their team, they get new powers. I would say it's a lot darker and more, not gritty, but just at moments depressing, where it's all these big systems, these big corporations and the church and the military, everything's kind of messed up and corrupt.
Right. And
it's the line I always go back to, everything sucks, everybody's fucked, or I never get that line right.
one of the important things is that like it's very well animated. It's a very well put together show. So even if like the story isn't necessarily your thing, you should definitely check out the OP and EDs.
Oh my gosh, I don't think there is a dud OP amidst the, I want to say 4, and like all of them are, I want to say at least most of them are bangers.
Yeah, they're really, really
on
good.
Our playlist.
The music is excellent. The animation is great. You know, it's got those pillars of a great anime. And I personally think the story is really interesting. Is it the most compelling thing? No. I mean, I wouldn't watch it over some of the other things that we've seen.
Yeah.
But like on its own, if it's, you know, a one thing that you have available kind of thing, it's definitely a good choice.
I would suggest checking it out. I would say for me, the aesthetic of like old 1940s firefighter aesthetic for a lot of what they wear, I really like, because that's not anything else. It's got a very like steampunk, diesel punk look to it, and I'm a sucker for that because you can't really get that anywhere else. Also a lot of like church vibes, because there's like a whole cast of like nuns that follow along with the firefighters and will say like prayers, and I still don't really know if it does anything and they don't really know if it does anything. And it's all like, these systems are, again, big teenage vibes of like finding out it's like, the church is big and possibly corrupt. Wow. And it's like,
yeah, there's a lot of that.
Not a teenager anymore. That's not really that astounding to me anymore.
And the thing, like, it's got a lot of fun. Like, all of the powers and stuff that are in it are centered around fire specifically. So there's a lot of fun sort of ways that they utilize that to go like, oh, this person's special power, like I like the one vice captain who his power lets him like set bullets off very precisely, so he can control like their speed and spin and like make them go in weird directions and all this stuff, because he's controlling like the spark of ignition.
It's got good battler bits.
There's a lot of fun stuff like that. So basically for those reasons alone, like it's worth checking out. All of that to say, and I want to get all the good stuff out there initially
before we get to the main topic of why it's a part of this episode,
because there's
sexy nuns.
well,
no,
not just
one.
So
I've got 2 words for you, which is, do you want me to say it?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got 2 words for you, which is Lucky Lecher, which again, an anime out of its era.
So the nun part is a thing, and I don't want to forget that. But that's sort of the tamer side of it. There's this thing where the nuns go and they have to like cleanse themselves. Yeah, really.
I know. The bath thing, you've seen it if you've seen the Konosuba bit where it's like they sit there and they pour the water over their heads and all that.
The thing is, they only do that like 3 or 4 times.
Only. And
then there is the one captain who is like really sexualized, and everything around her is sexualized, but like that's the gimmick, and I don't know if I can really dock points for that.
Empowered.
Yeah. That's one of those ones where it's like, oh, this is part of the story, so it doesn't really annoy me as much.
It's a base level of anime horniness, whatever.
And you could argue that the Lucky Lecher stuff is part of the story, but honestly, it goes too far.
No, it's the fucking grossest thing. So the bit...
Her clothes literally just fall off.
So the bit is that there is a character who is somewhat a nun, but also a fighter. She gets like cool, like little fire... like ears and a tail, like a cat or something, and
cat girl.
Yeah, a fire cat girl. But there are just moments,
could have been sexy enough,
but
on
also
its
a
own.
nun sometimes. But the bit is that she will be in scenarios and she will just somehow be like fall into somebody sexually, or her clothes will come off, or it's like, oh no, I'm walking by my coworker and I trip and somehow my boobs land directly in his face, or like, oh no, my pants have come off and I'm sitting on him. And the thing that just, even more than just saying that concept, is that no one in the context of the series likes it. She is terrified and mortified. She is always just like literally traumatized by it. Whoever it's happening to generally does not like it and hate it. Like, it's just the worst. No one's having a good time.
The main
character always shows up at times when you don't want it. Like, it's not it's never funny. It is always it's weirdly traumatic every time it happens.
The main character, who is ostensibly the most horny character in the show, doesn't like it happening
like
to
it
him,
either.
which is like, okay,
Who is this for?
what is the point of this? This is literally just for people who have like a humiliation fetish, basically.
I guess. I don't know. That's one where it's like, I can't.
Now,
I'm sure there's a safe way to do it, but I don't like it here.
I forget who shared this, but there's a specific panel in the manga. Was it you, Ben, who shared that? I don't think we got to it in the anime yet, but there's a specific panel where she has literally lost all of her clothes. And
I think that happens in her fights a lot too.
She's
she's just a character that's constantly stripped down, and again is actively traumatized and doesn't like that.
yeah.
I remember the panel because I photoshopped a Dairy Queen in the background.
Yes, that was
Because
where
he
you run
didn't
your
draw-
Dairy Queen thing. There's no background.
He draws her clothes flying off, and there's literally no background work whatsoever. It's
Yeah.
just a white panel. It's so lazy.
Again, I come back to my.
Fire Force.
If you want to draw horny. Just like, don't make it the worst.
Yeah.
How am I going to have a good time with it if nobody in this context of the scene is having a good time?
It's just so
Maybe that's
confusing
just
to
because
me.
it's so like consent is so wired into me, where it's like, and even if I wouldn't like it, at least you have whatever. At least have her like it for some reason.
Right.
Like it'd be cheap and I'd hate it, but at least it would be less traumatic in these moments where it's not just like I roll my eyes and go, okay, I go, oh no, like I'm caused active hit point damage because it's traumatic.
And it's like
It's uncomfortable.
all of the other women in the series are treated respectfully.
Yeah,
There's
generally.
the one firefighter woman who is like really strong.
She's jacked.
And like
Great.
there's I believe there's a shower scene with her,
Yep.
but it's done.
Yeah.
It's tasteful, and like there's an important, emotional thing that she's going through at that point, and like, and
It fits, but it is also nice to look at and is handled
Yeah.
respectfully.
and it's like the author obviously
Has something.
is able to do that. And so why is it in this very specific way they're like, yeah, as respectful as I am all the time, throwing that out the
If
window.
I'm remembering correctly from chatter, he's doubled down on it, even though everybody hates it.
So I have this weird impression about Fire Force because this is the guy who did Soul Eater, right?
I believe so, yes.
It's another manga I don't really care about, but and this could be a controversial opinion.
I liked the Soul Eater anime. I thought it was fun. It's not necessarily like excellent or anything, but
The vibe I get watching Fire Force is like, it's like you've said, it's out of its time a little bit, but also it seems like it's written by a guy who's just a little out of touch.
Yeah, he is out of time. He is out of touch. He's not
Yeah.
of our era.
It feels like he's just trying to write, like, Fire Force reminds me of half a dozen, I want to say really generic animes that popped up in a flash and went away in the 2000 to 2015 period.
Yep,
And
that's the time.
They
period.
all had some big conspiracy. They all had, weird powers where everybody had a specific thing they could do. It's like, it's just anime stuff all kind of thrown together, and it's not bad. Like you said, I mean, the music's on point, the animation's on point, but it just looks like a JRPG to me, I guess. I don't know. It just looks very generic.
If it did not have the fireman aesthetic that it has, like the steampunk dieselpunk look, if it was just like it's a generic future, or God forbid, it's a fantasy set, this looks like Final Fantasy,
Yeah.
I wouldn't keep watching it. But I think it's just the look of everything and the concepts of what's going on within that is what keeps me coming back. Where I'd go, even if I had a rough time with some of the seasons, it's like, if they put out a new season, I'd watch another one, because there was enough cool stuff where I was like, oh, that was a cool idea. I liked that. Or this character was kind of fun. Like, my eyes glaze over a little bit when they try to get into some of the deeper lore, where I'm like, this doesn't interest me. Like, give me fights and character moments and growth and stuff.
I think that the mystery of like, why is the world like this? What's going on? What's with these reactors?
I don't think it's bad, but it's a little too heady for me personally. It's not why I am there, but I don't think it's bad. It's just a bit much for me. It's it's got big teenager, like, I've written all this backstory and lore for this thing.
Yeah.
All these things.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I keep coming back to. It's got big, mid to late 2000s, 2010 teenager vibes.
Right.
And I just don't have faith that he can pay it off.
Nope. But that's not what
There
I'm there
could-
for.
Yeah, and it's this is one where I'm kind of in the Brad camp of I don't know, like if somebody put it on, I'd watch it. I don't know if
Which
I'd
is
seek
what
it out.
happened.
I would not.
Yeah.
I would not watch it without you guys. Not that I watch pretty much any anime on my own, but that specifically was not. I mean, even as we were watching it, however long ago that was, I was like, I'm watching because we're watching it together, and I'm getting enough out of it to warrant keep watching it.
I think I probably wouldn't have started it on my own, but now, 2 seasons in, or 3, how many is it?
I think it's 2 because there's 4 openers.
But, like-
maybe you're right. I don't remember.
I am going to watch the next season when it comes out.
It's got it.
Whether we
fairly
watch it together
popular,
or
I
not.
remember people talk about it.
I have become invested in it.
Yes, same.
It's not bad, but in a world where you've got Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, One Piece,
Spy
I
Family,
don't know,
Chainsaw Man.
I just feel like good animation is kind of more and more becoming the norm, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You don't have to put up with lesser good series if you don't want to, which is cool.
But yeah, and that's the thing. Like, is Fire Force doing animation better than Chainsaw Man?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Is it doing animation better than Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen? No.
No.
I mean,
But I think it's again, I'm there because of the aesthetic and some of the ideas around it and how that plays out that I'm not getting from these other things.
Here's my hot take. I like Fire
Force.
Force more than Demon Slayer.
ooh, that is a hot take.
So
I think
now they're
we're-
very close.
I think I mean I'd have to see what the new season does because it's been a hot minute since I've seen it. Ha 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 hot minute. I think I agree with you at where we are at with Demon Slayer now because Fire Force doesn't frustrate me in the way that Demon Slayer does.
And I'm going to watch both of them. I don't have to
Because Fire
choose
Force
between
feels
them.
like it's going for something really specific and it's just not fully to my tastes.
Yeah.
Where Demon Slayer is just like, this is a basic concept of storytelling. What are you doing? It's
That's-
not that hard.
the aesthetic of Demon Slayer, the animation and everything, I like more than Fire Force.
Yep.
But the story of Fire Force, I like better than
I
Demon
like
Slayer.
the animation in Demon Slayer is better. I prefer the aesthetic in Fire Force because nothing else looks like it.
Yeah.
Because again,
See-
I love that steampunky, dieselpunky firefighter look. With
In,
the big
in keeping with the theme of the episode, I
hats
feel
and all
like right now Fire Force is kind of all talk, no trousers. Like if it does something soon with the story, I could get on board with this has potential to be better than Demon Slayer.
Do you even know if the
I
manga's
think-
done?
I'm not sure. But I think
know about that.
it makes sense because the first season of Fire Force they put that out and it was like there was enough in there that at the end you could be like, if this doesn't get another season, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like they had a full arc in there that sort of gave you enough answers to some things that if it didn't come back, it would be like, okay, whatever. The second season was sort of just a buildup of the world
Raised a lot more questions.
that didn't answer anything at the end.
Yeah.
It sort of just heightened everything to a crescendo, and it very much feels like you have to have another season.
It was all middle.
Right.
Like it's all middle, and they raised interesting stuff with like the Amaterasu and like just, but it's one of those things where it's like it's real easy to invoke myth and religion, and now you got to show me you can do something with it because
Right.
Okay,
I feel like the
teenager
payoff
writing. It's on DeviantArt.
the payoff of season 2 was like new powers come into the world, and I don't care about any of that.
I mean,
don't
and there
care
were
about how good they fight.
there were some really good fights in season 2, some really cool stuff going on. But yeah, they didn't really end. It sort of just was like, and we're gonna do more. There you
That's why it's
go.
weird. Like, I don't know if it's just a thing where the studio that made it is busy and making other things, and like, I'm sure I could Google it and get information about it.
I don't want them to rush it out.
No, but it just feels
But-
like it's been a long time because
Yeah.
we watched that. It feels like ages ago.
It's
It's been
probably
a couple
been
years.
2 years.
Yeah, it feels weird that. I mean, again, maybe they're working on it. We just haven't heard something about it.
Well, I mean, we're
In the same
coming
way
up
that we
on.
keep going, like, where's our Sakamoto Days anime? Like, it should be announced freaking any week now.
Do you know our next episode is 24? That's 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I think we finished Fire Force before we started this.
I want to say you're right. If not, we were at the very tail end of it. Maybe when we recorded the prologue episodes.
Yeah.
That weren't.
But I remember it fondly, and I want it to come back. I want another season. I want to wrap up the story. I want to see some more cool fights.
I want another banger OP.
And I mean, a lot of times for OPs, the first OP I'm like really into, and then the second one I'm sort of like
diminishing returns.
Eh. With Fire Force, it kept up. They kept it going.
I can hear Torch of Liberty in my ears right now, which is very rare for a lot of these things.
It's on the playlist.
I know.
I think
that's why I know the name of it.
I think 2 of them are on the playlist.
At least
it might
2
be
of them,
3.
because there's like the "No one here wants to see you here," like big My Chemical Romance Hot Topic vibes, and I love that in anime because it's so like, again, it's out of time. It's a decade too late.
Yeah,
but that's what makes it great because it becomes unique because of that.
I was just at a Hot Topic recently, and they've got a lot of Fire Force merch.
There you go. It's perfect.
Yeah. So it's probably going to come back.
It's gotta. We'll Google it.
They're
right
selling
after this
merch,
episode,
so
making a lot of this talk moot.
Yeah. But I think it's, yeah, like you said, it's worth checking out. Just to keep in mind that, like, for whatever reason, just out of the blue, we're like, we're gonna do some sexualization here that nobody asked for,
that nobody likes.
And it's not like it's the only series that does it.
It just does it really bad.
It does it badly, and it's just rude because you've done so good everywhere else.
Yep.
It's lazy. That's the thing I like the least about it.
I don't know that it is lazy.
It's so specifically... I would say lazy, but it's so specifically wielded. It feels like it takes more work to make happen than just like, I drew a pretty lady.
The fact that the other women, for the most part, except for the bath scenes, which are somewhat were out of place, but like the other women are treated so well.
Except for her.
It's just
constantly treat her like garbage.
And it's not like it's 100% of the time like the main character rescues her from a bad captain.
Like there's moments where she gets like, I think there's one where she gets this big, like, it's this important fight and she's been building and she's like, I have to be useful, I have to be somebody. And then to have that bit at the end where it's like, oh no, I'm naked, just like undermines this entire moment of her being strong and capable and this big story thing that they're literally talking about in the scene. So that's clearly what the theme is. And it's just like, why? Why did you ruin this nice, heartfelt moment with this thing no one likes?
It feels very deliberate. So I don't think that
laziness is not the word. Yeah. It is malicious.
I don't know. I don't trust this author. I don't trust this author.
Don't worry. Neither do I. I just wouldn't call it laziness. It's too empowered to be lazy.
You know, Soul Eater didn't really have any kind of weird sexualization like that.
Maybe he was storing it up.
There's the most sexualized part, I think, is the 2 weapons of Kid Death. The 2 guns are wearing like booty shorts, but that's it. But that's just like their aesthetic. So, there's the cat. I forgot. There's the cat that's a witch, and she's always getting naked. But like, she's an adult.
There's a witch in this one.
Yeah. Huh.
But she's an adult. And also into it. So
see, that's all you gotta do. I'm not gonna like it, but I'll hate it less if at least she could be into it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna like it, but it's not illegal.
It'll be less awful.
Consent is important.
It'll be less uncomfortable.
Have I talked before about how much I hate NTR?
You keep saying that. I never remember what that acronym is.
Netto-rare.
I don't know what that is.
It's cuckolding, basically.
I think you've told me that before, yeah. Yeah, just do the bit. She's really into it. Other people aren't. That's the gag. That they're at odds because of that. She's like, oh, isn't this nice and pleasant? And they're like, no, I hate that. Like, again, don't love it, but at least the person it's being done to is more empowered.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. So yeah, watch Fire Force. No idea how the manga is. I'm sure it's still going.
It's perfectly average.
I don't know where you read it.
Hey, it's slightly above average.
What would you consider to be average?
Yeah, you're not the greatest. What have we watched that is average?
We don't watch average things, though.
Exactly.
That's why Fire Force is slightly above
I
average.
wouldn't allow it. That's what I like. That's why I like Brad's description system, because that is correct. If it was just average, we wouldn't be watching it, because I would say we're not watching this, or I would be bored.
Well, thanks for listening to That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording. To find all of our social media links, such as Discord, Twitter, Threads, Patreon, Facebook, and more, visit our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. You can also find articles on various topics, as well as new manga reviews. We'd love to hear from you on any of those social platforms, or you can leave a comment on the site. You can even just send an email to isekai-sensei-sama@gmail.com. We're always looking for feedback on what you'd like to see from us, or better ways to interact with you. If you prefer to listen to the podcast in high-quality stereo, be sure to check out the YouTube channel, where we simul-release all of the episodes. We're also releasing those high-quality versions early on Patreon now, so if you can't wait, you can check that out. Ben, what have you got going on with Words About Books lately?
Oh, that's a good question. Kind of the opposite of what we're doing here.
Probably for the best.
The 5th season, it's about a woman whose children are murdered.
Oh, no.
And she by the husband.
Oh,
and
no.
She has to go hunt him down and kill him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's not sexy at all.
No.
They didn't just throw
In fact, there
some
is
random...
sex, and there is sex, and they specifically describe it as unfulfilling, both emotionally and physically.
Oh. See, that's the kind of realistic storytelling that I want. Kermit, you got stuff to plug.
I actually have something to plug this time. The much talked about Shonen Flop Discord that I enjoy lurking and talking in. I have started a flop pool in there because we were getting a crop of cancellations in Shonen Jump, which means new series are popping up. So have a pool that every couple of chapters, everybody will vote and say if they think it's going to be a flop or not. And then we get to look back on it and laugh or go, haha, we were right, or oh my gosh, we were so wrong. So the first of those new series, Mama Yu Yu, I believe it is called, has come out. And everybody thinks it's a flop, but maybe you have a different opinion. So come on into the Shonen Flop Discord. I think I do in the Shonen Jump thread or whatever the new threads we make for each new series. And cast your vote and then look back a couple chapters and go, wow, I was on the money. Or wow, what did I know? Who could have guessed it? So
And
it's a fun time. It's like a little time capsule of your opinions coming back to haunt you.
And make sure you check out Shonen Flop in general. I was on that podcast months ago, and they're going to be having another special guest coming up here.
Yeah, it's almost like we talked about it earlier in this episode.
Well, thanks again for listening. And you know, if you wake up in a completely different world, try your best to keep it in your pants.
It's time.
Ben, I'm going to turn this timer on, and I'm going to put it in a place where you can't see it.
But I can see it. Ben enhances on my eyes and sees it in the reflection.
All right.
There it is. Was it good for you, baby? Shoot, Ben, I don't remember who I was talking about, but I got to drop the anime, the Kimo thing on somebody. Oh, it's the people that I play. My friend is running like a One Piece Pathfinder game.
Oh, wow.
And one of his friends that is playing, who I both love and despise, is just the biggest fucking meme lord. And he constantly has a new thing where it's like, I'm an old man and I hate this, even though I think we're around the same age. But I went Kimo, and I described the situation that I was calling him cringe.
Yep.
And it felt very powerful to hurt somebody's feeling getting teased that much. Who was like, cool down, meme man.
That's why we learn languages.
Yes.
Are you a fan of Japanese pornography? Because today's sponsor... Hey, or see if we can get a deal with some exporter
No.
of Japanese.
No. 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 I refuse.
I have to be really good. All right. Well, in that case,
Maybe a place that sold body pillows. Maybe.
body pillows. That's maybe a little too explicit. Body pillows and
I mean, I guess I own one.
boob
so.
mouse pads
Nah.
and full size cardboard cutouts, life size cardboard cutouts of anime waifus.